On February 22nd, 2021, 911 dispatchers received a call from a hysterical teenage girl. The panic in the girl's voice escalated as she explained to the dispatcher, "I just killed my sister." Officers arrived quickly. They were greeted by the caller, 14-year-old Claire Miller, on her own front porch, who was waving down the officers as they arrived. She was covered in blood. All she kept saying to the police over and over again was, "I stabbed my sister." Officers looked around Claire and saw blood in the snow, and it dawned on them that Claire had tried to use the frozen water in a lame attempt at cleaning the blood off her hands. The chain of events that led to this point are so awful and bizarre that you may believe this has to be some sort of hoax. But unfortunately for the loved ones involved, it was all a very real nightmare. Hey humans, it's Hannah. Welcome back to my channel, or if you're new here, I do videos on creepy and disturbing things. Before we continue with today's story, this video actually does have a sponsor, so we're going to roll to that really quick and then we'll get right into it. I am very proud to say that a portion of today's video is sponsored by HannahTheHorrible. HannahTheHorrible is probably the most versatile fictional true crime game that you could ever come across. It's perfect to give as a gift to your true crime obsessed friends. You can bring it to group game night and impress everybody. You can do it as a creative date night with your partner. Or you don't need anyone. You could play it by yourself or, just with your cat if you want, if you're sick of people, and use HannahTheHorrible as your new engaging hobby to immerse yourself in your free time. HannahTheHorrible offers all-in-one games, or you can get it as a subscription. A lot of people are often worried that this kind of game is going to be too hard for them, and trust me, I'm one of those people too. But don't worry about that at all, because HannahTheHorrible has different difficulty levels available. And if you do happen to get stuck, you can always go to the spoiler-free online community that has over 100,000 members if you need help from your fellow players, or if you just want to join the community and chat with others that are playing the game. And in addition to all of that, HannahTheHorrible is a fictional true crime game, but they actually do care about solving cold cases in real life as well. When you order from HannahTheHorrible, a portion of all of their proceeds goes to the Cold Case Foundation. So while you're playing the game, you're also helping solve real life cold cases. Right now, you can go to HannahTheHorrible.com/horrible and use the code HORRIBLE for $10 off your purchase. The link and the code will be at the top of the description right below this video. Thank you again so much to HannahTheHorrible for sponsoring a portion of today's video, and let's get back to the show. Quick trigger warning for this story. It involves the main victim of this story is a person with a disability, and so if that's going to be triggering for you, which I can imagine it would be for a lot of people, this might not be the best video to watch. So go watch something else. I won't be offended. The other thing I just quickly want to get out of the way is that you're going to hear me say allegedly a lot throughout this video, or words kind of like it. And that is because Claire has not been convicted of a crime yet. She is currently awaiting trial. We don't know what's going to happen. And just like anybody else in at least America, you are seen as innocent until proven guilty. So this entire story at this point is technically alleged. All right, so let's start this story by backing it up just a little bit. So this story is about the Miller family. Claire Miller lived with her family in a one-story ranch type home, and she lived in a pretty affluent neighborhood in a place called Manheim Township, which is located in the county of Lancaster in Pennsylvania. And to give you an idea of how affluent they were, Claire went to a private school. She was a 9th grader when this happened at Lancaster Country Day School. She lived with her parents, Mark and Marie Elena Miller, as well as her 19-year-old older sister, Helen. So Helen Miller was only 19 years old, like I said, when her life was stolen from her, literally. She was disabled. She had cerebral palsy, and that is a movement disorder that typically shows up in early childhood. And because of this disability, Helen used a wheelchair to get around. Now, I'm going to say a little bit about Helen right here, but I just want to preface pretty much this whole video with the fact that it is criminally difficult to find any information on Helen in terms of her personality and what she did when she was alive and stuff like that. Because the girl who killed her was a TikToker and was only 14, yada yada, all the attention is on the alleged perpetrator rather than Helen, who really should be the center of this. I mean, she's the one who died. But from what I could find, I dug up a couple of her obituaries and stuff like that. What I could find, she was a very caring person. She had a really great sense of humor. And one description said that she brought light into every room that she entered. She was also an artist. She would do paintings and also sculptures. One of her watercolor pieces even won an award at one point. So by all accounts, she was very talented and very, very lovely. Okay, so the Millers, the parents, bought their home in 2005, and they set up an irrevocable trust in Helen's name. And they did this to ensure that Helen would have resources and support in the future if she ever needed it. I think really if something ever happened to them, they wanted her set up in a good place, and she was the oldest daughter, so it did make sense. And then again, from the very scarce details about this case that are out there, from what I could find about Helen and Claire, the sisters, they actually surprisingly had a pretty good relationship. It is said that Claire used to go with Helen to a lot of her hospital visits, and she was there for Helen when she was having a really hard time, especially having a hard time specifically with her disability. We will talk more about their relationship later when we talk about motive. So on the day that this would happen, on February 21st, 2021, this would happen in the early hours of February 22nd. So during the day before this happened, Claire posted a TikTok. It doesn't have anything to do with the crime itself, really, but it's just very interesting that she was in some right state of mind that she was able to post to social media that day. And then a witness would later come forward who was allegedly a friend of Claire's and had spoken to Claire that day, according to this witness, and said that Claire was having, quote, homicidal and thoughts. So in the early morning hours of February 22nd, 2021, Claire's parents and her sister were all sound asleep in the home. No one knows exactly what happened right before Claire got the knife. There's again just not any details about it. Like, it would be really interesting to know what she was doing, if she was on social media, if she had some sort of nervous breakdown or something. Maybe we'll know later. But what is known is that at some point, Claire went to their kitchen and got a big kitchen knife. She then went to Helen's room and started stabbing her. Later, they would find that Helen died from multiple stab wounds. Claire then covered her sister's face with a pillow, except the knife was still stuck into her neck. I'm not sure why Claire covered her sister's face with a pillow. I have heard, again, this is just based on my knowledge of true crime and what I've heard, but I'm no expert, and that is perpetrators often will cover their victims with a sheet or with something if they do know what they're doing and they're like in the moment, and then they suddenly realize what they did, and so it's some sort of guilt and some sort of like, I can't believe I did this, I can't look into this person's eyes. Or the other thing I've heard is that it does indicate that they were close to the victim, either emotionally or physically, or, you know, same family and stuff, and so they cover them up to kind of like give them some dignity back, something like that. That's totally speculation in this case, but that's kind of why, that's the only reason I can think of that Claire would do this, is that she kind of had an oh shit moment. Or there was so much blood that Claire was not expecting the mess, and she used the pillow to try to like cover it up or try to clean it up or something. Claire then called 911 like we talked about at the beginning of this video, and they found her, like we discussed, in the front yard right after she had tried to clean her hands off in the snow. When the police showed up, as far as I know, the parents were both still asleep and had slept through the whole thing. Claire greeted the police outside, and then she willingly led them to Helen's room to show them where Helen was. I don't know at what point her parents woke up, but I would imagine they probably woke up when the police were entering the home. And I mean, can you even imagine being a parent and just going to bed as normal one night and then just waking up to this? Like, you would think you were in a nightmare. I would be pinching myself to try to wake myself up. I cannot imagine what their poor parents went through. Anyway, the police of course tried to revive Helen just in case there was any hope that maybe she was still alive, but Very sadly, she was not, and she was declared dead at 4:13 a.m. As news hit the media of what Claire had allegedly done to her sister, of course, everybody flocked to TikTok because some people had seen her on there before, or other people were just searching to see if she had social media. Again, Claire allegedly had the account called at Spirits and Such Consulting. Claire was pretty active on her TikTok account, and she had actually around 22,000 followers, which for a 14-year-old girl that's not doing any high production and stuff on TikTok, that's actually quite a lot of followers. She would post a lot of anime content and also a lot of just like the regular popular trendy TikTok lip syncing videos that you see a lot of mostly Gen Z doing. And then after everybody started looking her up, of course she showed up on a bunch of people's For You page. She gained 11,000 followers, so she ended up with more than 30,000 followers after she committed this crime. Of course, she was already arrested by this point, so she didn't even know, as far as I know. But she gained a ton of followers, and then of course she was showing up on people's For You page, which people also thought was creepy, but she was obviously showing up because everybody was looking her up and giving her a bunch of engagement. So like I said, she posted this video on February 21st, and she would carry out this crime that night. Another pretty notable video on her account that a lot of people talk about is this little montage that she did of her dad. And yeah, she did like complain about her dad and her parents sometimes on her social media, but this particular video seemed kind of like a loving tribute to him, even though it's kind of like, oh, dad, you're so embarrassing and everything. Look how silly he is. But I mean, she posted it, I think, in a well-intentioned way. And then you can see in this video that you can actually see Helen in the background of a couple of these videos. And that's about all we see of Helen on Claire's TikTok account. The other thing that this makes you think of is just that you see her poor dad, who then you knew very soon after this was about to go through just the worst thing a parent can go through, which is losing one of their children and then losing their other child to, well, the prison system. Something else interesting I found is that of the recovered videos from her TikTok, and I think people have screenshotted pretty much all of them, and that is that Claire never talks in any of them. She never rants, she never other than the text that she puts on the screen, she's always just lip syncing or just looking at the camera. It's really interesting. So it's not like she's going on these crazy bizarre rants or anything before she carried this out. So it's always fascinating for us to look at criminals' social media to see what they were doing before they committed their crimes. I think that's very normal to be fascinated by that, but this one is almost worse because it's so normal. To me, there were no red flags, at least from what I saw. I didn't think that there were any red flags, and she just seemed like a very normal teenager that had, some angsty times, probably had some dark moments like most teenagers do, but otherwise had a pretty normal life. To me, her TikTok gives us no insight into why she did this. But it doesn't really matter because TikTok very quickly deleted Claire's account for violating their community guidelines. TikTok never confirmed that this was actually her account, so technically this is allegedly her account, but TikTok deleted it nonetheless because apparently, according to their guidelines, users are not allowed to even participate or engage in violence outside of their app, which I guess makes sense since it is, she's a suspect of a major crime. And this is actually good that TikTok deleted her account because people, of course, flocked to her page and then were just making the most inappropriate comments you could possibly make after somebody passed away. Things that were insensitive to the victim, to the family, lots of people just laughing at the situation and calling it funny, making other jokes. It was just, that's really gross. Do better. If you knew anything about this case before clicking on this video, you are just waiting for me to talk about the glove giraffe video. A lot of people are gonna be like, Hannah, there were obviously warning signs. What about that other video that she posted? The bloody glove and the bloody giraffe in the snow that she posted on TikTok right after she killed her sister. That wasn't a warning sign. That wasn't clear proof. Yeah, that video that's fake. And I want to clear this up. This video, and there's screenshots from this video, like on Daily Mail, which of course never trust Daily Mail as it is, they're very unreliable, but several sources, granted tabloidy sites, but several sources nonetheless, claimed that Claire posted a picture of a bloody glove after she did this on social media. So let's watch this video clip right now, and warning for blood, but it's probably fake blood. So if you actually look into it, you will find that there is absolutely no evidence or connection from this video to Claire Miller. I started getting suspicious after I was trying to find information on it, and several of the articles and the sources that mentioned it were very, very vague. They used very loose wording. They wouldn't say when Claire posted this. I couldn't figure out if this was something she posted way before the crime or during the crime or after the crime, and I could not find an answer. So all I can give you is what I'm 99.9% sure is the truth. If you look at re-uploads of this video on YouTube, a lot of the comments are from people from TikTok that were saying that this was never Claire's video, but someone just started this internet rumor that it was Claire who posted this. Several commenters claimed that they had seen the original video from another creator. Some said that it was actually a girl who was creating an ARG, and the video was food coloring. It was totally fake blood, and it was just some girl making a series on her TikTok. And then I found this further proof video on TikTok. And then on other comments that I found on other TikTok videos about this, some other people claimed that this random girl posted this video on her account, Claire saw it and reposted it on her TikTok account, and that the whole thing was just very bad timing. Others swear up and down that this video was posted on another creator's account, and it was after Claire had already been arrested, so it was absolutely impossible that Claire could have posted this. And I don't know, I know that these are all just rumors and hearsay from a lot of people, but from a lot of people saying this, and that combined with the fact that I can't find any evidence or any original video connecting it to Claire's alleged account, I'm sorry, but I'm 99.9% certain that this video had nothing to do with Claire, and people just started spreading it around. And if they were spreading this rumor around as something that Claire did during the crime, there is in none of the sources I could find did it ever mention that she was wearing a glove. Furthermore, she was washing her bare hands in the snow, so it had nothing to do with a glove. So it's just, yeah. Okay, current status of the case, and then we'll talk motive. Claire, in the state of Pennsylvania, was arrested and charged with murder. Apparently in the state of Pennsylvania, which it does not surprise me at all, there is no such thing as being a juvenile and committing murder. So according to Pennsylvania, it literally does not matter that she was only 14. If murder is involved, you are just automatically tried as an adult. This is why Claire was even publicly named to begin with, because typically minors, when they commit crimes, their names are not put out into the public, but because Claire is being tried as an adult and charged as an adult, apparently that absolves her from getting any juvenile protection. Which is, okay, I'm sorry. I know that this is going to be a very controversial part of the video, and I know a lot of people are not going to agree with me on this, which is fine for you, but I personally think that she should be tried as a juvenile. She's 14 effing years old. Most 14-year-olds don't even know where their apple is. I mean, it's just like, what she did was absolutely deplorable, and I totally think she needs to be held accountable. But at 14, I don't think you have the same brain as a 25-year-old or even an 18-year-old for that matter, and so it just seems unfair. It feels like they're trying her as like a 25-year-old serial killer rather than a 14-year-old girl. However, her defense lawyer, whose name is Murd3r, is trying to get this case moved to juvenile court. If she goes to juvenile prison, then they're going to have a lot more rehabilitation services, and hopefully Claire will get more counseling and the psychiatric help that she so clearly needs. And then the other latest update that we have is that Claire's defense team is planning on arguing the insanity defense. And again, obviously I am not a lawyer and I have no personal connections to this case whatsoever, so what do I know? Take what I say with a grain of salt. However, again, just from my knowledge of true crime itself, pleading insanity is not as easy as it sounds. It's not the past that a lot of people think it is, and it's actually pretty difficult to prove true insanity. If you remember the Lorena Bobbitt case, when I did a video on that, if you watched that, we talked about that a little in there. But the gist is that it's not just thrown around easily by any lawyer who wants to get their client off. There's actually a lot of criteria that the defendant has to meet in order for this to work. So if her defense team fails to get her moved to juvenile court and she's tried as an adult, and or if the insanity defense fails, Claire in the state of Pennsylvania could be facing life in prison or even potentially the death penalty, which I doubt personally that will end up happening, but even talking about it, it just seems like too much. I mean, again, it's so hard to talk about this because I don't want anybody to think that I feel bad for Claire or that I think there's any pass for what she did. I think what she did is just like banana pancakes. I think it's just, it's beyond unimaginable. I think she absolutely needs to be held responsible and accountable for what she did. And I think she needs to feel guilty and bad about it for a long time. And I hope she understands the gravity of what she did. However, it feels wrong when there's serial killers that sometimes don't even get the death penalty, or other way worse offenders, more violent offenders that often get re-released into society in their lifetime. So to even talk about, I don't know, it just seems like too much. Again, I'm no expert, but that's my personal feeling on this. Anyway, that is where the case stands now, at least as far as I know. That is the most recent update I could find. As we talked about earlier in this video, let's talk more about motive, and with that, possibilities of Claire and Helen's relationship. From pretty much all we know about them is that they were close, or at least somewhat got along, and Claire would evidently sometimes accompany Helen to doctor's appointments. Now, it is speculated by many, and I've just seen this on various forums, that this is actually partially or fully Claire and Helen's parents' fault. It is not uncommon for families, when somebody in the family is disabled, for a sibling of the person to feel responsible for their sibling or to kind of take on some of the caretaking duties. Some believe that Claire's parents might have pressured her into this role for Helen, and that there was basically some parentification going on here, where Claire was kind of pressured into taking care of Helen for her parents, or taking on more responsibility than she should have, which does happen. And so Claire acted out of rage and out of not being able to handle this responsibility. But again, with a lot of stuff in this case, if you see that around, it is very important to remember that we have no information about whether this is true or not. Their family dynamics and details about their family life have not been made public. However, hypothetically, if this was the case, then yeah, I do think the parents should be held at least partially responsible. If hypothetically they had pressured her into that, then yeah, I wouldn't blame her for being so young, not understanding that there were other ways out, not understanding that she should not be the caretaker for her sibling. But again, we don't know. By all accounts, the parents were very good parents, and we don't know if they were putting any of the responsibility on Claire. What is very, very tragic, and I want to take a moment to acknowledge this, is that national data actually does show that a person with a disability is more likely to be killed by either their somebody in their family or a caretaker. And then very strangely, our society is often like almost sympathetic vibes for the perpetrators in these situations. In our societies, we often, especially if you don't know and you're not close to somebody with a disability, we often see disabled people as burdens. And so people that don't understand, like looking in on it, are like, oh, that poor thing, she couldn't take the responsibility of being somebody's caretaker. And so, you know, she like pushed into doing this, which is just, you know, obviously that's absolute bullshit. Another possible motive that people speculate on is that, was Claire really jealous of Helen? It's also a common theme that siblings of disabled folks do become very jealous. They are either perceived to be or actually do get a lot more attention from the parents or the caregivers of the family. I found a Reddit thread about this particular case, and several people on there were saying the same thing. They, of course, all agreed that what Claire did was despicable and unacceptable. But for people on this thread that also grew up in households where their sibling was disabled, they felt very jealous and sometimes neglected at times. And so in a very strange way, they understood it. I mean, they would never act on that, never do something like that, but just in a very strange way, they understood how difficult it can be. But obviously, it's extra sad because the disabled person is, one, they're not a burden, and two, none of this is their fault. Just because there's these odd family dynamics does not mean that a disabled person deserves to have their life taken away. Like, it just, this case is very hard, but that is ultimately where I stand. Above all the other gray areas, I just think Helen deserved way better than this. And then, like we talked about earlier, that friend who came forward and said that Claire had told her on the phone or through text or something that Claire was currently having homicidal and thoughts. And so that may give us a peek into Claire's mental state at the time if this witness is in fact telling the truth. And for whatever reason, the right people were not alerted of this and could not stop Claire before she took somebody's life. Okay, I'm gonna let you guys go. Don't forget to like the video, literally just to help the channel, not because the topic is fun or anything like that, but yeah. Don't forget to go check out my link for Hunt a Killer down below, and thank you so much to all my patrons. Special shout out to top tiers Colin Holmes, Deck of Cards, Michelle Valdovinos, Tom L, JJ, Dirty Kitty, Quasi Eli, Little Kittle Cat, Whimsicott Fan, Delta Wolf 776, Mitchell Meyer, Mike, Alice Paul, and the newest top tier, Dark Sided Otter. Go watch a puppy video or something after this. That's what I'll be doing. Okay, bye guys.